Hi everybody, all my followers, welcome to another video. So this video today is on a 2005 Land Rover Freelander TD4, and this car came to me with the complaint that once you start drive, the car goes in limp mode, something like that. I haven't drove the car yet, but I did a scan. By the way, was no lights on the dash or anything like that. No engine light, at least when the car was dropped here. When I start the engine, just to move the car, there was no funny lights, no nothing. And the car just behaved fine. I engaged reverse, drive, gear, drove fine, but I only drove the car to maneuver the car here on my driveway. I never actually went to a road test, which I'm going to do in a minute. So the complaint is that when you start to drive, it goes into limp mode. So we're going to go for a road test and we'll see exactly what happens. But I've scanned the car and deleted the codes because there was loads of codes in there. And obviously if he triggers any codes, I want to see exactly which codes are. And a good thing with the MaxiSys is that the MaxiSys stores every single scan you do. And I'm going to show you what the codes on the car were. So these was the codes. I could swear it was more codes than this. Unless this was the last one. Yeah, probably was. Okay, so yeah, so I had these codes here: automatic gearbox, emergency program, and instrument systems. A CAN boost fault, no message received from the ABS, and an aircon pressure sensor, not worried. But was more codes on I don't know why he only stored. I was just saying a good thing with the MaxiSys. He's storing but he's not showing now. Okay, anyway, I can tell you that was codes on the engine ECU for fuel pressure, and on the gearbox ECU was a code for internal EEPROM error or something like that. So anyway, we're gonna go for a drive test. Like I said, road test, see exactly what happens, and literally we'll go from there. See which codes are gonna be flagged, and yeah, let's gonna go for a road test. And just before we go, I just want to show you that there is no lights on a dash. I'm gonna quick scan the engine, and as you can see, there is no codes. Transmission, as you can see, there is no codes. ABS, it's gonna have to be that one. No codes. And instruments, we still have these three codes here. Is actually the codes that were showing there, wasn't it? So let me probably have and delete these codes. So I believe the reason why they were there was because that was the last scan saved, and I think I haven't deleted the codes on the instrument pack, on the instrument cluster, but all the codes are gone now. Let me have a look. Cycle ignition again. It's gonna make sure I go for a road test with no codes stored, so I can then see exactly what is triggered. Okay, so there's no codes now in there. So I've done these main ones. Let's just gonna see airbags just to make sure. I can't remember if I read the airbags or not. No, there's no codes in there anyway. Okay, so we have the rest of the modules doesn't really matter for what we're going to be doing here. So engine, transmission, ABS, and instrument cluster, everything is code is error free at the moment. And yeah, now we're gonna go for that road test and see exactly what happens with the car. Okay, so I came for a drive, and well, as soon as I left home, I could see straight away something was not right. So basically what it does is it just doesn't move. I mean, you engage drive, so I was driving on D position, and what the car does is it kind of engage second gear fine, but then it stays there. I can put my foot down and the car just does not develop. It's just like it struggles to move. The only way to make it to drive a little bit better is if I go into sequential mode and I force the next gear in, which it will engage the next gear, so it drives a little bit faster. But even then, it's still, the accelerator is not responsive. The car does not really go. It's very difficult to get over 30 miles per hour. It really is. I've just stopped here now, and another thing that I've noticed just to try is I put into neutral, and if I put the throttle full throttle, see what it does? Full throttle. Look at that. Look. Full throttle. Stops there. And there is no power really. There is no boost. I can hear the turbo kind of pulling, but it's really weird. I haven't checked the codes yet, so we're gonna quick do that. See what we have coming up now, if anything. So there we go. So we have a problem. Pre-fuel pressure control. So we have an issue here, which obviously tell us something, hopefully. It's gonna see if the gearbox does have anything in there as well. No fault codes on the gearbox, which is good. Because to be honest, the gearbox seems to be just doing what it's supposed to do. It's just the fact that the engine is not giving the output, so the gearbox can't. So no codes in there. So that's why I've deleted all the codes before, because you know, with all the codes that were in there, you never know which ones were there earlier, especially with no freeze frame data. Okay, so the only code we have coming back is that one. It's on the engine and is a pre-fuel delivery. Okay, so it's gonna go to some live data. It doesn't tell me what that is. So it sounds like high pressure and low pressure. Okay, so that's gonna be PSIs, maybe 200. It's gonna be 280 bars. Sorry. Yeah, it's gonna be that. And at low pressure, which I presume that's gonna be the fuel pump that's giving. I'm gonna guess this is gonna be PSIs, so it's gonna be 2 bars around there, perhaps. It doesn't have units. This is a little bit of a crap live data. Okay, so it's gonna mean probably that when I demand fuel, look what happens to that pressure. You should keep the pressure, but he actually drops it. That's the only thing I can actually see. Man, I don't have units. This is absolutely terrible. The pedal seems to be working fine. There's a lot of compensation here, but I don't even know what. There's two cylinders here with a lot of. But our code is for pre-delivery or pre-fuel pressure control. Code 1260. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go back home and start to investigate this. Okay, so first thing is that live data, if that is PSI, is 200 PSI, it's not 2 bars, it should be around 13 bars. I'm not very good with conversion sometimes. Weird is, on the way back home, it started to drive just fine. Look, the revs I go up just fine, as you can see, and the car started to drive absolutely perfect. So I'm a little bit confused now what to look for. And the low pressure supply, look where it is now. He went from 200 while we were idling at the time, if you remember, to 329. I don't know. Let me see when I accelerate, see if that goes up or down. Yeah, it goes down, but not 250 like before. So definitely we have a problem in there. I just need to figure out why it went from bad to good. I need to find out how this system works. See if there is I'm gonna think this is the pump in the tank. I'm gonna assume that. And if 200 bars is 13 PSIs, that means 320, that's about 20 something PSIs. Sorry, if 200 PSI are around 13 bars, that means 320 is going to be somewhere around 20 bars, 20 odd bars. Okay, let me just do one thing. Let me turn the engine off. And the pressure is just building up again. Yeah, the car is revving absolutely fine now. But that is definitely the fuel tank, because look when I turn it off, and look when I turn the key on. Look, I can easily hear the fuel pump in the tank. So if I turn it off, it goes to about 100. As soon as I turn it on, start the engine. There it is. Okay, I'm just gonna double check, make sure that's what it is, but it seems that we have a problem with the fuel pump in the fuel tank. So what have we done so far? So I took this sort of intake here. I know this is the common rail fuel pressure, but was one thing that I didn't like it when I unplugged it, which was full of dust. The plug, I should have recorded that. The plug was full of dust. The pins were a little bit too opened. I don't think that was causing any problems, but we repaired that. I compressed the plates, cleaned it properly with some electrical cleaner. Looks much better now. Now, my fuel, come on, really? It's gonna be a little bit tricky, this one. Okay, so my low pressure supply, the sensor that reads this is right there at the bottom there. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, so that's my sensor for the low fuel pressure. Okay, now obviously the sensor now seems to be working. The car was running fine, so at the moment I'm a little bit like, it is a sensor problem, or is actually, or the sensor is reading all right, and we really have a fuel delivery issue. I don't have a manual a gauge for this, so I'm not going to be able to connect nothing into these lines, which is a shame. So I'm going to have to investigate this a little bit further and try to see if I find out something. I'm going to measure the sensor, voltage and all that, and we'll go from there. But it's going to be fine now because the car is driving fine. So okay, it's going to be one of the two things. I can't see anything else, or the sensor or the fuel pump in the tank. Okay guys, so I think I've been just talking too much without researching, but all these pressures on the live data, and hang on a minute, I've just lost communication, key was off. So all these live data info, I think this live data is not 100% correct. 296, I'm not really sure what the reading is. I mean, PSIs, it can't be PSIs because I believe is way too high, maybe. Anyway, I did a little bit of research. This pre-delivery fuel pump is actually placed under the wheel arch on the rear right wheel. I couldn't find really the pressures. I mean, I found something else which I'm going to show you. Which is with the engine idling, that voltage is showing minus because I have the probes the opposite way. The pump just went off, but with the engine running, that should be around 4.3 volts. That's the signal wire. And I'm going to show you when I start the engine, that doesn't go above 3 point something, 3.3. So let me start the engine. Which means if that would have to go to 4.3 volts, that pressure should go to over 400. It's a shame I don't have a unit. I mean, 400 PSIs, really? What? I can't even. Low pressure supply, I don't think. Yeah, if I change it doesn't change because there's nothing. Damn it. Okay, anyway, now the thing is that now reaching, is the sensor now reaching that voltage because it's faulty, or is now reaching that voltage because the pump is now delivering that pressure? If I unplug the sensor, that goes to 440 here. Obviously there's no, obviously it just goes to default fuel. It just goes to default as it's not connected. So I'm gonna assume to start with that the problem is not going to be the sensor, and it's going to be the actually delivery, the pump itself. Testing the sensor is fine. I mean, it's giving voltage, as you've seen. It seems to be working, so I'm gonna assume from here that's going to be a delivery issue. It is a shame I don't have a gauge to put on this fuel line just to see what fuel pressure we are actually getting. If the fuel pressure, oh damn it, I need to get some more tools. So yeah, but as you have seen in the morning, that was not even reaching that. It was about 250, and all of a sudden we start to get pressure. So I'm gonna blame the pump filter. Maybe it's gonna check the fuel filter as well, see how it is. It might be that we have a dirty fuel filter as well. So let's gonna take that into bits and have a proper look. Okay, and hence you take the wheel, the cover, it just exposes the whole assembly, and here we have the fuel filter. There's a little magnet here. I believe this is a magnet. This is a sensor here. There's a ground wire here that's not in very good conditions, although I don't think this is needed to run the pump, otherwise the pump wouldn't run at all. And I think I'm just gonna take the whole assembly out, change the fuel filter. That's a must now, we're gonna have to change it, and then have a look at the pump. I'll take the filter first, see how it looks like. It may be that the filter tells us what the problem is. If the filter is too dirty or something like that, then we'll know maybe it was just a filter problem. Okay, let's gonna try to take this off. It's all rusted, it's been a nightmare to get to this. Okay, and the thing is out, just a few connections and electrical plug, and I'm a little bit confused now. I never worked on this system. I'm not sure. There is two fuel filters, because that looks like a fuel filter to me, but then you have a second fuel filter here, the BMW type, the long one. So don't know. Let's gonna dismantle this and see what we find. Okay guys, and just before I completely blame the pump, I want to see what the pump is actually doing, and for that I'm going to check on a scope using the clamp meter. I have a good motor here. I'm going to show you the signal, and then we're going to put it onto this, and I want you to see the difference. So I'm going to try to place the phone here in a way that you can see it. Okay, I'm going to plug this into the good motor first. Let me see if I plug this right. Just bear with me guys, this is a little bit tricky. Okay, so that's a good motor. And now I'm going to show you the pump. Can you see the difference? All the peaks. It's not as smooth. It's not a smooth line, look at that. So I believe this pump is gone, or is on his way out, I would say. Obviously earlier I've showed you the wave on the scope of this motor and this one, but now we have even a better comparison because I have a brand new pump, and we're going to be able to compare the amp draw on both pumps. I'm going to show you the old one first and then the new one, so just bear with me. Okay, old pump. And now the new pump. Hold a second. This is the new pump. Can you see the difference? And even the way the pump runs is completely different. The sound and everything. So I'm pretty much convinced that our problem was the pump. We're gonna fit all this and see what happens. And we are gonna obviously also replace the filter. The old pump is here. The new one is now in place, as you can see. Just slide in the new filter and put it back on. Okay, everything is back in place, pretty much. Just a little bit of the plastics and stuff, but the main thing's in place. For that, I believe that's just kind of the ground for any static for the filter. So what I've done is I put a terminal at the end of this wire, and I've just wedged in there, full of grease. So hopefully no corrosion will happen in there. But yeah, it's just a terminal wedged in there, job done. That was how it was initially anyway. And I think we are pretty much ready to try. Even before finishing off, we can just turn the ignition on and see which pressure we get now. Okay, and the first thing we're going to check is the voltage signal at the sensor. If you remember, was about 3.1 volts, something like that. And that was when we had the car running okay. So let's kind of turn the ignition on. And look at that. Pretty much 4 volts straight away. Hell of a difference. And this is just ignition on. I'm not sure if it's different with the engine running. I don't think it would be, but we have now the machine connected. Let's gonna load the program again and have a look at the live data. And we have 355 ignition on. That was before was 320, and the only thing we've done was a new pump and a new filter, and we got to those values straight away. So the other pump was bad. So I haven't started the engine yet. We're gonna do it now. I can hear the pump going. There's some hair on the lines, so I don't even know if this is the correct readings yet. I kind of primed the system, but it's gonna let it idling for a bit and see if anything changed. Okay, and I think there is an obvious difference, which is reading about 350, whatever that is, PSIs. I believe it's PSIs, but it's reading about 350. Yeah. When I rev the engine, and I'm gonna rev the engine passing 3,000 RPMs. If you remember, on the old pump, that used to drop quite a lot. You're gonna see now how much it actually drops. See, it dropped about 40. It didn't even went below 300, which means obviously is maintaining the pressure. So we're gonna put everything back together and we'll go for a drive, but I'm quite convinced that the problem was actually that pump. So I'm quite happy with the result. I think we got it sorted. Okay guys, I just came for a drive. I parked exactly where I parked in the morning, and I'm really happy with the results. So I've recorded a little bit of live data, and this is the fuel, the low pressure supply. So is 217 there, 361 in there, and 270, and you can see it didn't even reach the 270, and that's when the engine was revving at about, I don't even know how I'm going to be able to see that now, but it was revving at about 4,000 RPMs. So I was pulling the car really hard here, and as you can see, he came all the way up there. That's when he reached the lower limit in there, or the lowest value in there, and even then it's still right above the normal running, the normal pressure with the old pump. Other than that, it's been going to about 350, as you can see, it's 361 on that dotted line, and it's been just below pretty much all the way. Just here when I pushed a little bit harder, it dropped a little bit, but the car's been running fine. So I'm quite confident that this was the problem, and I would say this is a fix. This is definitely a fix, and this was obviously for the P1260, I think it was, for the pre-delivery or pre-fuel pressure, whatever that was. Guys, I think that's it for this video, really. If you have one of these, check that first, because that might be our issue. We could have a bad sensor, but I think as soon as we saw those waves, that signal in the scope, that pointed straight away for the pump anyway. That's where the scope can come quite handy. Guys, I think I'm gonna wrap this video here, and yeah, I really hope that there's some information here that you can find interesting. Who knows, it might help you. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you still have any questions, any comments, please put them below, and like always, thank you so much for watching.